Hello everyone. The build update for the Chaos Witch is finally here. I did have the build ready a couple days ago, but then I knew there was an update coming out, and of course I want to check to see if it's going to change anything before I post the video, so you get the best information possible. If you come to my streams to see where the build is at and to get some ideas, thank you very much. I will be streaming when this video is up, and I'll be streaming most days for sure. So I will do a quick explanation of the abilities. I'm only using 4. I'm still using my totem. So when I apply any kind of chaos dot to the enemy, the totem will shoot at them and make them take withered, which withered makes enemies take increased chaos damage. So the chaos dot abilities I have are Contagion here and Essence Drain. Essence Drain does a lot more damage than Contagion, but it only hits one enemy. Contagion spreads all chaos dot around when an enemy dies. So essentially what you do is hit an enemy with Essence Drain and then put Contagion on them. If they're dying too fast, you do Contagion first. And when this enemy dies, it will spread over to this guy. Obviously I don't have much damage on right now, so that's not going to happen. But for my last ability, I have Hexblast, which removes a curse from an enemy, which is that purple thing above him. I'm applying that curse with Blasphemy. It turns the curses that I socket in here into an aura, so they're always applying, so I can always just use Hexblast and explode the curses over and over. So we have 2 more abilities that come from our Ascendancy. The first one is Demon Form, and this is when we go into Demon Form, we gain 25% increased cast speed, plus 6 levels to all spell skill gems. Then every second we gain Demon Flame, as you can see up here. I'm in my Demon Form. And for each stack, you will lose 0.5% of your life per second, and you'll deal 18% increased spell damage. So the higher that we can stack this up, the more damage we're going to be doing, but the more life we're going to be losing. So the idea is you make your maximum life as low as possible and get as much regeneration onto the build, so you won't actually start losing life until the life loss overrides your life regeneration. So in my last video, I was capping it at 10 maximum Demon Flame from our Ascendancy here. So this is the Demon Form, and then you can cap it at 10 Demon Flame, so you can keep, you only lose 5% of your life, and then you'll have 180% increased spell damage. It'll probably be less for you because this levels up as you level up, so my numbers will be higher for now. But I capped it because it's a lot easier to just play the game with it capped. When you have to deal with using your health flask to heal you, making sure that your energy shield is recharged, and then Hexblast takes up a lot of mana, so you gotta deal with your mana. You're pressing a lot of buttons, it's harder to manage, but if you can do it, you can leave it uncapped and you will do more damage. You might not be in your Demon Form all the time. I do think a good time to take off the 10 maximum Demon Flame. You can see here, actually, before I keep talking, that this is about the max stacks before I start losing life. I cannot recover life in any way right now. We'll talk about that later. But essentially the best time to uncap your maximum Demon Flame from 10 on your Ascendancy, which is right here, is when you can go into your second Demon Form immediately after the first one. Well, I guess it'll be your third one after the second one with the second wind support gem, because this will give you 2 uses of Demon Form. So you go into Demon Form, and then you end, and then you go into your second Demon Form, and then your first Demon Form will cool down while you're in your second one, and if you can make it to the third one because it cooled down, I think that's when you can uncap your maximum Demon Flame, and it should be pretty good. If you're struggling to keep up your life flask and do all that, I don't think it's time yet. It's just when it's comfortable, when you're using second wind, is when you should uncap it. There is another support gem you can put on here to make your cooldown faster, Ingenuity. I don't use it because I don't need to, and I don't want to add more dex requirement to my build. So I just want to make this very clear because I get so many questions about it, is how do I have so many stacks of Demon Flame? And I have so many stacks because I'm able to keep my life regenerating more than Demon Flame is degenerating it. By default, Demon Flame degenerates it by 0.5%, as I've already said, and 0.5% of 200 is 1. And that is actually the minimum amount of life you're allowed to lose per stack of Demon Flame. So even if I got my life lower, I would still always lose 1 life per stack. So this is like the perfect threshold. Do not ask me how I got exactly 200, but it's perfect. So I lowered my life by having reduced maximum life on my rings. This converts my life to energy shield. There is a node on the passive tree that reduces life. So with all those combined and having no life on my gear here, I have no maximum life on anything. I have as little strength as possible, only enough strength to satisfy all the requirements for my support gems. With all that, I just have as little life as possible, and the more regeneration that I get, the longer I can stay in demon form. And we will talk about all that, and I have 228 right now. The last ability, Summon Infernal Hound, it just gives you a little doggy friend, and you just make him really tanky by adding Meat Shield, which makes him have more life. You give him Elemental Army for more elemental resistances. You just make him tanky because he will take some hit damage for you. I don't think the percent is stated, but for some reason I remember seeing 20% somewhere. And then I also put on Calling Strike against him because it will let him kill rare or unique enemies at 10 and 5% respectively. I've never seen him do it, but it sounds nice. So for the spirit gems here, let me talk about them real quick. We have Blasphemy that I explained earlier, which gives us our Curse Aura. And then I also have on Clarity, which reserves some spirit, and it gives us more mana regeneration. This is additive with the mana regeneration on our tree, so if you can't fit it, it's not a big deal. This is mandatory for this build. This build has evolved a lot since the last video, so if you can't make it to this build, I do have a middle stage build guide in the description, so check that out. You won't have this on the middle stage, but for this build, we are using our Life Flask to regenerate or recover our energy shield. So this is mandatory here. And then we have on Grim Feast, which is one of the best gems for mapping by far. When we kill enemies, they drop energy shield for us. We pick it up, and this can overcap our energy shield. So instead of 660, we can get 12,120 energy shield. Then Arctic Armor is something I had no clue about until I was going to bed last night. And I found this video from Cat Kills, so I've yoinked this tech directly from them. They have a more Hexblast focused build. I am using Essence Drain and Contagion because I enjoy it. But you can check that out if you're more interested in only Hexblast. But what this does is, over time, you gain stages to Arctic Armor, and when an enemy hits you, you just explode cold out around you, which means the enemy that hit you will most likely freeze unless they're rare or a boss. And this prevents you from just getting chain stunned into oblivion in maps. I actually prefer this over Enfeeble in maps, but I do have another Blasphemy on here with Enfeeble in it. And what you can do is, this is my map setup here, and when you get to a boss and you have time to prepare, or if you're just quick at swapping while you're in a boss fight, you can just turn off these two and turn on Blasphemy, because in boss fights, if they don't summon additional enemies, then Grim Feast really does nothing, and then Arctic Armor is never going to freeze the boss. I mean, it will, but you're going to get hit too much, and you're going to try and avoid that. But what Enfeeble will do is let you take less damage from the boss, which is much more important. So this setup for mapping, whoops, and then turn this on for Enfeeble for bosses. So the main idea of the build is just to throw out tons of chaos spells, do spreading dot damage to large packs of enemies like Breach or Ritual. I just wish there was more enemies in the game in general. The maps, like, you run around maps and there's like 3 hallways, and then you go down 3 hallways of no enemies, and then there's like 4 enemies in a room and you kill them, and it's just not satisfying. So doing the league mechanics are very fun, and that's where Contagion and Essence Drain work the best, because there's so many enemies to spread it around. And then you just use Hexblast for the rest, and you can use Contagion and Essence Drain to clear also. I do here and there, but a lot of the times there's so few enemies in the maps that it's just like Hexblast and they're gone. So no more poison on the build. We don't totally need it because they did buff Essence Drain. They heighten the damage actually around level 25 where we get the skill gem with our demon form. They buffed it by 33% damage, they said. I didn't look at the values before and after, but it definitely feels like it does more damage, and I just believe them. I still don't level my Contagion gem. I don't care that it increased in damage. It still does basically 0 in my eyes. And then we still use Dark Effigy to spread Withered, as I said earlier. But yeah, no more poison. What I did with our tree, instead of running all that poison stuff, and instead of coming down here really far, will get us closer to another jewel socket. Maybe when I'm level 100, I'll pick up the level of all chaos skill gems. But what I did instead is bring the tree to the left. The first thing I want you to see is that we took Eternal Youth, where life recharges instead of energy shield, but that doesn't matter because we're always losing life, so it will never recharge. What matters is life recovery from flasks applies to energy shield instead, so my flask will now give me energy shield. And I got rid of all my recharge nodes, faster start of recharge, no more, recharge rate, no more. And I also took Zealot's Oath over here, where excess life regeneration is applied to energy shield, and energy shield does not recharge, but it wasn't anyway because of Eternal Youth. And we have so much life regeneration, well, so much. We have 228, I do right now, which isn't a ton, but this will help you stay alive when you are at low Demon Flame, and at high Demon Flame, your damage is what keeps you alive. Well, you're just very tanky in this build in general, but it's just an added layer. And the reason I got rid of all recharge is because in boss fights, specifically the King of the Mists, he is throwing out so many random abilities just everywhere that it is so hard to not get like just ticked with damage for even 2 seconds to recharge your energy shield. It's very scary. In maps, the only time you die is when you're just getting obliterated by a bunch of enemies. And waiting to recharge energy shield is not going to save you there. So if you just have a life flask to chug some extra life, it might get you out of a situation, and it should help you actually recover life in boss fights. Obviously, we are capped by the amount of charges we use, and this is a very recent thing I've done, so I may change it, but in theory, it sounds amazing. And in the little bit of testing that I've done, because I made all these changes last night, it feels very, very good. So I do recommend this. If anything changes, I'll obviously put it in the pinned comment, and I will have a build guide that I will be, the Mobalytics build guide. I will be updating that, so check that out too. So I will go over the supports on these gems really quickly. We have just damage on Hexblast. This is damage. I lose the area of effect because I'm using Essence Drain and Contagion for my area of effect damage, and there's another gem called Considered Casting that they actually just buffed recently, so it actually does 40% more damage also, but it gives you less cast speed, and that feels like shit, so I don't use it. And then I have Control Destruction, which I don't crit with Hexblast, so just more damage. Inspiration makes it cost less. It costs so much. You need that. And then Arcane Surge helps you keep up your mana, and you can see here that it also gives you more cast speed, so you're just ripping spells all over the place. It feels really good. So for Essence Drain, we have Swift Affliction, where it's just more chaos damage over time, basically. And then we have Intense Agony, which if this is Essence Drain's the first thing you throw out in a fight, it will do a lot more damage. But we do have less skill effect duration on this, but it's not too big of a deal because we're killing enemies so fast. I do have Chaos Mastery in Essence Drain, but I would put on the support gem that gives us more skill effect duration, but that's a strength one where I'd have to take more life, and I don't want to go over 200. And then I would put the Chaos Mastery on Hexblast, but for now it is on Essence Drain. And then also on Essence Drain, we have on Chain. I was using Pierce, but I'm pretty sure Pierce affects the dot damage of Essence Drain, so I just put on Chain because it lets us hit the Essence Drain on a lot of enemies, but it doesn't lower the actual damage of the dot. Then a Dark Effigy, this is just our Wither Totem. It just shoots at enemies that we put Chaos dot damage on, and will inflict Withered on them with its quality. You can put quality on it, and I don't know if these like stack or something, or give 2 instances of Withered, but quality gems aren't that expensive, or the Gem Cutter's Prisms to put on quality aren't that expensive, so you might as well. And then yeah, Withering Touch allows the hit to apply Withered, so that's more chaos damage for us. Then we have on Ancestral Urgency, so we can cast the totem lickety-split. We have Acceleration, so the projectiles go super fast. And then we have on Envenom, which can poison the enemy, which is another chaos dot on the enemy, so it will fire more projectiles at them. So it'll build up the Withered all the way very fast on an enemy that you want it to. So Contagion is actually the skill I kind of want to put 5 sockets on first, which sounds crazy, But what we have is more cast speed because I like casting fast, and it is a 1 second cast time for such a minor thing. And then we have Unleashed, which stores up uses of Contagion where we're not using it. And when we use Contagion, it will cast out multiple of them. Since Contagion is single target now instead of AoE like in PoE 1, this makes it so it's much easier to hit our Essence Drain and get it spreading. Then we have Magnified Effect, which is more area of effect, which will not put it on more enemies initially, but when the enemy dies, it will spread it easier. And we have Chaotic Freeze on this, so any enemy that is taking chaos damage over time from Contagion, and then we hit them with chaos damage, which would be our Hexblast, this will build up freeze on them, which is just very nice CC in the map. And then there is a Hinder Gem that I would really like on Contagion that I can't make work right now, but that is what the 6th slot would be. It slows enemy movement speed. So for Arctic Armor, we just have a lot of freeze buildup and stuff based around freeze, chilled ground when we freeze an enemy, more freeze duration, and then I have +1 to the actual gem itself to do more damage. Okay, so for the gear, we have new rings very clearly. These are the Infernalist rings. They're called Ming's Heart. Every Infernalist starts to use them because they lower your max life, which means you take less damage from Demon Flame. And they're getting a little expensive. You don't need to get corrupted versions. The corrupted versions can have higher values or lower values of the stats. You want higher values of reduced life and lower values of reduced global defenses. Global defenses are, as you can see here, energy shield, evasion rating, and armor. And I thought this was multiplicative, so this is actually why I was not using these in the first place, so my mistake. But this is just additive. So since I have 2 of those rings, if they both gave me 30% reduced defenses, that's basically the same as 60% increased maximum energy in the other direction. So it makes this node like null and void, more or less. It's just a way to understand it. But I picked up more energy shield on the tree, which we will talk about to counteract that. And that's really all I did to counteract that. I don't really have much energy shield on my armor at all, besides our Ghost Wraith, which is the most necessary unique. You can get this very early for very little price. It's probably an Exalt. I got a 60% one. It comes at 50% maximum life converted to energy shield. This makes it so our maximum life is lower. And then if I take this off, you can see how little energy shield I actually have. So it all comes from this. This is also one of the main reasons that I went with a Life Flask. We aren't a high energy shield build. We are essentially just energy shield because we can't go life. And this, almost every build you see of this has about like 5,000 to 7,000 life, which is higher than most life pools, but it's a lot lower than most good energy shield pools. So that's why the recharge is kind of bad on the build. The recharge is percent based, so we don't recharge as much per second. I think I could recharge energy shield after 2 seconds. So if I was in a boss fight and I wasn't getting hit for 3 seconds, I would recharge very little energy shield compared to someone who has a pool of like 16,000 energy shield. So just more reasons to use a Life Flask. And then, okay, so with these rings, it makes resistances very hard to get because there are no resistances on these besides Chaos. Luckily, all of our uniques give us Chaos resistance, so that kind of helps fill it out. I think the only other Chaos resistance I have on this build is this rune here, or Soul Core. And then also I picked up the 10% from the quest in the Act 3 Cruel part of the campaign. And I think that's all my Chaos resist to cap it out at 75%. And then, yeah, it's hard to get resistances. So if you can't buy these and make your resistances work, you can just go with one ring for the build, and then another ring makes the resistances so easy to reach, because rings can get, of course, regeneration. You want regeneration on your ring, like all your other gear, but you'll get regeneration, and you'll have 2 suffixes where you can get resistances, or you can get like cast speed or something if it works. And then also rings have the implicit. The Sapphire, Ruby, Topaz, and Prismatic rings have implicits, which is this part up here, that give you elemental resistances. So it's way easier to reach your resistances if you don't have a second Ming's Heart until you can make it work. As you can see, I've opted to get a ton of resistances on my amulet also, along with a ton of life regeneration, very important. And then also you do need, how much spirit? I think, with this build. So I have 150 right now, and I'm reserving 13 still. Or I'm not reserving. So yeah, you need 140 spirit on this build, it looks like. Yes. So you need at least 40 spirit on your amulet. If you're going to use all of these gems, I have my blasphemy fully qualityed, so 10% reduced reservation for all these things on it. Very important. And then I think I have this one qualityed too, but I probably don't need it. So one thing to note with the amulet is that you can get +3 to all spell skill gems on the suffixes. I would not be able to make this work right now. It's extremely rare. It's extremely expensive. I mean, you can get a +2 to all spell skill gems and it'll be a little bit less. But getting that with spirit, top tier life regeneration, it's just going to be hard. So I haven't done it yet. In the future, hopefully. But it would make resistances really hard to make work on the build. I guess, I mean, I didn't have to get rarity on my helmet. I just kind of saw it on the market and was like, fuck it, rip it, let's get it. And then I did get life regeneration, mana, and no maximum life like the rest of my gear is supposed to be. And then I do have this +2 to level of all minion skills. And it's like, why? This is my only minion. What do I care? Well, actually, Grim Feast is a buff. It is not a spell, so I cannot increase it with +2 spell skill gems. It is only labeled as minion and persistent, but there's nothing that it raises persistent skill gems right now. So you have to get plus level to minion skill gems to raise this. And raising this is very good because, like all gems, it has exponential scaling. So the higher the level, the more you get out of it. And there's really nothing else to put on a helmet that is good. You can't get level 2 spell skill gems on a helmet. It's literally only minion skills. So this is like a phenomenal place to buff up one of the best survivability skills for maps. Lastly, in all the remaining gear, you just get resistances, 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 and life regeneration. You cannot get life regeneration on gloves, so you can either get mana per enemy killed or life per enemy killed. Right now, I have no way to stop my demon form from lowering my life once I get over the cap, which kind of sucks. There's definitely a ton of merit in gain life per enemy killed, because it would make it so it doesn't run out when you need it most. When you're killing like hordes and hordes of enemies, you'd be able to keep it going until the enemies subsided and you can just return to normal and go back into demon form. But this just helps the mana sustain for now. All my runes are obviously socketed to give me resistances too. And then also on my tree, I do have some jewels with resistances to just barely eke out enough resistance all around. So you can see I can get 76% max, and I don't even have enough to reach that with lightning. So for the flask, I haven't theory crafted it enough because I just finished this out last night. But I feel like this isn't optimal with gains 0.25 charges per second. The increased life recovered that also removes 15% of life recovered from mana when you use it, I'm pretty sure is optimal because this is the most amount of life that you can recover, which is very important. And again, this is being multiplied by the support we have here. So I'm actually recovering like 2,600 life. And then also I found out that this is also multiplicative, so you can recover even more life if you would like to. The only problem is that I don't want to anoint it with an amulet, and then we're not recharging energy shields, so these are basically useless nodes, so I just haven't picked it up, but that is very nice. Basically, you can recover like 3,000 energy shield from using your life flask once, but I guess I just looked at it because I'm thinking about it now, but you can get increased charges, which means that you would get 12 uses out of this flask, and that sounds better than recharging it and only getting... can I ever press the correct button here? But this makes it so you'd have to spend a long time charging it to actually get that many uses out of it. So maybe the like increased maximum charges is the better thing to get on the suffix here. My mana flask is still one that I have from the campaign. I'm not too worried about it, but that's if you have mana problems, getting a good mana flask can definitely benefit you. For the charms, I don't really care about freeze too much anymore because I didn't know this existed on the tree when I made my recent video, but these are all very good. Reduced effective chill, increased freeze threshold, and then this makes it so our maximum energy shield is additional freeze threshold. I guess it was based on life, which is very bad for us, so this fixes that. And then also, I love this, you are unaffected by chill during dodge roll. A lot of the times you get chilled and then you're just a sitting duck. This will let you just do the Infernalist dodge roll and you're fine. So I don't really use this much anymore unless the map has chilled ground on it. I have been frozen on chilled ground before, and I don't know if it contributes to the freeze threshold or if it was just coincidence. So when there's chilled ground on the map mods, I'll throw this on instead of my rarity charm. Usually I just run rarity. And then if you really want to not die, you should probably run this. Sometimes big ignites hit you, and this was before that I put on the life flask, so maybe it won't be as big of a deal, but when you had to recharge energy shield, big ignites stop your energy shield from recharging for a long time and just keeps ticking it down in front of your eyes, and you're like, shit, and this will hopefully stop that a lot of the time. I was originally very scared of poison with demon form because obviously when demon form is reducing your health, then you get poisoned, you'll be at 1 health, and then you would think the poison would just kill you. But I did test it a few times, and that is not the case. When you reach 1 health in demon form and you're poisoned, you just get kicked out of demon form, and then within the same game tick, it starts realizing that you have regeneration again, and you don't die to the poison, and you start regenerating health. Obviously, if the poison is stronger than your regeneration, you will probably die, but most things that like poison by default in this game are really weak and do very little poison damage, assuming that you have full chaos resistance. But there are map mods that allow enemies to poison on hit, so if you get slammed with something and get poisoned on hit from a map mod, that might kill you, but until then, I'm really not worried about it anymore. I did almost forget, and on my amulet, I do allocate Resilient Soul, which is the notable here. It is not too expensive to anoint with the Distilled Emotions from Delirium, and I did test it, and it is better than Hail Heart, wherever that is, right here. You would think this is like an overall multiplier, but it raised my health very little when I first put it on. I was very surprised, or not my health, but my life regeneration. I was very surprised. And then during stream, someone asked which was better, so I changed it over to Resilient Soul, and I had more life regeneration when I put on Resilient Soul, so I stuck with that, of course. So for the Ascendancy, we already talked about most of it with Demon Form and the Infernal Hound. Oh, actually, here it is. 20% of damage from hits is taken from your Hellhound's life before you. That's where it says it. But there is a third notable that we take. It is Altered Flesh. 20% of cold and lightning damage is taken as fire, so obviously don't take this if your fire resistance is lower than your cold and lightning resistance. And then also 20% of physical damage is taken as chaos damage. This sounds like a bad thing because you take 2 times damage to energy shield when it's chaos damage, but we do resist it by 75%. So this ends up being a 10% physical damage mitigation. So picking this up is very good. We do pick up this 3% increased maximum life, and if you don't want that for like fucking, I don't know, like 2 stacks of Demon Flame, then don't take it, but this is pretty much worth it. Okay, so for the tree, I've already talked about some stuff on here just in between, but we have all the energy shield nodes that we could possibly get. This one over here is important because it reduces your maximum life. And then over here, I picked these up after I put on the Ming's Heart Rings, and that's because it reduces our global defenses. I'm not going to make the build less tanky for more damage. I mean, it probably wouldn't worth it in the long run because it's so much more damage. But I really hate losing defenses in this game because it's only 1 life in maps and against bosses. Also in these rings, we gain 30% of damage as extra chaos damage. This is multiplicative. This is very good. And so I got rid of some of it, but we got a bunch on our rings, so we don't need to take it on our tree on this notable here. Also, I found out that chaos damage is all additive to spell damage, and all Demon Form does is give us thousands of spell damage, so there's no reason to pick up 7%, 29% chaos damage. Really thought this would be multiplicative, but it's not. So really none of these nodes are worth a damn. So for all the other clusters on here, we are picking up the increased area of effect of curses to increase the area of effect of blasphemy, obviously. And then we also have some AoE over here, which does affect blasphemy, but this is mostly for contagion, so we spread Essence Drain a lot better. And then we also have cast speed up here. So we get 6% increased cast speed for each different non-instant spell that we're using, and we're using 4 of them. So basically, if you do your whole combo, you get a ton of cast speed. Well, 24% by the 4th spell. And then we also get 16% increased cast speed, but increased mana cost of skills. Since we're using Arcane Surge on our Hexblast now, we have a lot of mana regeneration, and I have so much mana from my gear, so I can pick this up. If you're having mana problems, don't pick this up, because it'll make them worse. And then for our mana problems, you pick up a lot of mana regeneration on the tree. We've got some down here, some here. I might change this over to over here for a certain reason in the future. You can pick up this node. I just don't have enough points right now. This node up here is very good. You just gotta always be moving. But yeah, mana is a problem, but it seems to be getting better the more max mana that I get. For stun immunity, I took these nodes. This one gives +5 to all attributes, so it's really nice. And then I also took these two because they're just really close. I don't know if it's better than this cluster that I had here, but if I notice I'm getting stunned a lot, which I don't think I will because of Arctic Armor, maybe I can remove these completely, which would kind of seems kind of crazy, but maybe I could. I'll update that also. And lastly, make sure if you're going to use Enfeeble that you have Whispers of Doom allocated, because then you won't be able to put 2 curses on an enemy. So for all of these jewel slots, you need to get increased life regeneration rate. These have become increasingly expensive because this is basically the only Infernalist build that you can run. I'm pretty sure this build can run any spell. It's just a vehicle for any spell to do damage because of the Ascendancy. But everyone's running increased life regeneration rate. There might be other builds that are doing it, so these jewels have gotten expensive. There are other stats that you can look for that make these jewels better, but I suggest if you're just starting out to only go for increased life regeneration rate because yeah. So all my jewels have hopefully 15%. I think only one doesn't because I needed some cold resistance. Yeah, that one has 8%, but the rest have 15%. I have a lot of jewels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 jewels. And then it's very obvious that the Adorned Diamond is best in slot in one of your jewel slots at least, because this increases the effect of Magic Corrupted jewels. I think I have 1 already that I'll be collecting. The other stats that are good are increased AoE. I think that's the best one. And then you can do increased totem life, increased totem cast speed, or increased minion life to increase the health of the dog. But yeah, I think that's it. The only other thing, there is this jewel. Where is it? I'm like searching for it right now. This jewel, it can get notable passives, increased life regeneration rate up to 7%. They just increased it from 2% to 7%. So this jewel socket right here would be really good for that because we're taking 1, 2. I can grab this 3, 4. And then I said I can change my mana regen to over here. So it'd be 5. So 7 times 5 is 35%. And then if you get a Magic Corrupted one, you need a large radius for this. If you get a Magic Corrupted one, then it'll increase it even further with Adorned. They said it works now. So yeah, that is best in slot right here, I think is a really good idea. And by putting this video out, I'm never going to get one. But yeah, I'll be grinding out this build for a long time. I do want an Adorned. It will give you a lot more stacks, and that sounds really fun. And I just do love this build, and I have no problem playing a build for a long time. So if you want to catch that, I will be streaming almost every day. I think usually not on Saturdays. Yeah, definitely not on Saturdays. Maybe like really late on Saturdays. I'll stream for a little bit, depending on my sleep schedule. But yeah, besides that, if you have any questions, comment down below. If you like the video, leave me a like, please, and get this video rolling again. The last video did so well. I could not be happier. Thank you so much. And subscribe if you don't want to miss out on content like this. See ya.
I'll use